Hey, I'm Lisa Singer. I am the Senior Editorial Director of Brand Insider at MediaPost, and this is Brand Insider BTS, where I get to pull back the curtain on some of the most influential women marketers today. And with me is Chelsea Marti. She is the Director of Content at Novartis. Hey, Chelsea.
Hi, Lisa.
How are you? I love that your voice is better now. I mean, earlier this year we were at Farmer and not doing so well with the voice department.
Yes, my cold is cleared up and it's Friday, so I'm happy.
That is awesome. Well, I'm so happy we're able to do this because I know we were going to do it live then,
Yep.
but this will be just as good. And I'm just very excited to be able to find out this part of you.
Thank you. Me too.
So, well, first, Novartis. One of Novartis's mission statement, or at least part of it, is never satisfied with the status quo. We imagine what's next.
Mhm.
So I want to turn that on you
Yep.
and ask you, has there been a time in your life when you haven't been satisfied with the status quo? And if so, how did you reimagine it?
Mhm.
And what did you do to change things?
That's a great question. It actually does um, tie into my career at Novartis, actually. So before Novartis, I spent around 15 years in tech marketing. So various kinds of tech. I worked at my corporate career started at Intuit in 2008, and I worked for a startup. I worked for B2B services organizations like ADP and Cognizant. I spent a lot of time in a form of tech, whether it was startup or enterprise. And I loved tech. What drew me to tech when I was younger is, that it was always evolving and changing, and I saw a lot of promise in how it could change lives for the better. And I loved that journey for a long time. And as I matured as a marketer, I started to really start thinking about purpose. What drives me? What do I want to look back and feel good about having contributed to the world with my career? And that's, I had a couple of personal instances occur. I had a very sick aunt that was actually on a Novartis trial drug before I worked there. And that trial drug kept her alive for a number of years with advanced cancer. And I just really had those eye opening sort of aha moments that we all have as we mature, that, you want to think about your day to day as having somehow contributed to the greater good. And so it was around 2020, at the start of the pandemic, when I really started to look seriously at healthcare and pharma. And I decided to make the pivot from tech, long time tech career, to pharma. So that is like one way in which, Novartis's mission really is what drew me to it. And my personal experiences sort of shaped my need, and this is kind of just who I've been since I was a little kid, to kind of give back to the world in some way, while obviously still evolving and growing my marketing career and contributions.
Well, I love that. And I'm so happy that you were able, I'm sorry that your aunt had been going through what she was, but that you were able to experience that with through Novartis
Yep.
and that, it enabled her to be with you longer. But
Yes.
I think that's such an amazing trajectory in the sense that, I mean, did you go out specifically and target Novartis at that point? Like, I know at this point you decided you want to do more, you want to add more positivity to your carear.
Yep.
But was Novartis, there are other brands out there. Was
It's a good
Novartis on
question.
the was
Um,
that was on the radar?
It was. So it's kind of a weird story, but like 6 years before I ever interviewed for the role I'm in now, I was looking at Novartis because my aunt was actively going through treatments, and I paid attention to Novartis for that reason. I actually interviewed somewhere around 6 years ago for a social media role with Novartis. And I didn't get that role, but I met a lot of amazing people in the interview process. And I kind of thought, well, that was interesting. Didn't get me what I wanted, but it was just really eye opening. And I was really impressed with how smart everyone I talked to was. And I kept going in my tech career. And then I saw the opening for, a role that was actually oriented very much so with what I had been doing in tech for a couple of years, like professional engagement programs for sales reps. And with an innovation angle. And so someone like me with my marketing experience and my tech experience suddenly became much more of a need for Novartis in 2020. And so that opened the door for me to actually finally get in. And I thought it was just kind of a funny story. Like 6 years ago, I was talking to them, life flies by, and then it actually worked out. So I was very, very grateful to be able to start working at Novartis. I didn't really target a lot of other pharmas. I looked at healthcare generally, and I thought that was interesting. But Novartis always stuck out to me because of my aunt's experience, and candidly, I'm also part Swiss, and that's a big part of my family's story. And it's a Swiss company, so I just kind of like, for those couple of reasons, always paid attention to it.
That's great, and I think that's such a valuable lesson for people to be hearing in the sense of that perseverance. You know, you when you decide on a brand that you wanna work with for whatever reason,
Mhm.
and maybe it's not gonna work out right away. There's
Right.
gonna be you don't get this position, but you kept your eye on it and you then went back when it was more geared towards what you can do or what you've been doing, and you were able to then achieve that. So I really think that's a huge lesson for those in the industry trying to maybe get to a certain spot and don't be defeated if you don't get it right away.
Yes, I and that's actually something I'm happy to talk more about if it makes sense. But I came from a family where most people were not college educated. I had a couple of my aunt that was sick, and a couple of uncles that went to college, but we were predominantly blue collar manufacturers. My grandfather was he had a cheese plant actually. So I did have to knock down doors to get in them and through them. I didn't have a lot of industry connections, and I would say that like, when I was looking for my first corporate role in tech, I remember, and I'm sure many people applying for jobs in this economy right now are thinking the same thing, but having a spreadsheet of like thousands of applications and, just stick with it, be tenacious and network. And I think eventually you can see success if you continue down the path.
Yep. No, if you want it enough and you do the work, do the learnings, maybe you didn't get something because, for you, it maybe wasn't as the right fit.
Right.
Whereas when you did get hired by Novartis, it was the better fit. But also sometimes it's about learning more things to then be the right fit.
Yes,
So
exactly.
whatever it takes.
Mhm.
I think that's awesome. Well, I want to ask, what do people get wrong about you when they first meet you?
Um, it's a great question. I am a naturally friendly, affable, approachable person. Um, I like people. I'm curious about people. And it's really genuine. It's who I am. I think sometimes that can come off as sort of like the first thing they remember about me. And they don't necessarily understand what's going on behind the scenes. And so I think it's a great thing. Personally, I enjoy connecting with people, learning about people. It's something that I don't want to get rid of, but it can sometimes be perceived, I think, as not as serious or not as like deeply thinking about marketing as one could be. But that's actually quite the opposite. I mean, I think about it a lot. I think about its connections to the world a lot, and a lot of the different people that I meet, because I am very open and curious about them, teach me something new every day. And so I think, maybe that whole idea that, you know the friendly person in the room, especially in like Northeastern cultures, work cultures, is not always the smartest, might not always be accurate.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I've experienced that myself, and it's you. They basically are underestimating you,
Yeah.
but you show them off. You show them. We had you on stage. You showed the audience what you're capable of. So, do you almost find that is rewarding? In the sense that I'm not saying like, nah, nah, like I'm better than what you thought, but in the sense that you step up and now
Yes,
you show your worth.
absolutely. And I've got a lot of amazing mentors and friends, and I think it's interesting, like the older I get and the more senior in my career I get, the more everything that I do day to day becomes about like selling, whether or not I ever wanted to be in a sales role. And so inadvertently, I realized it's a strength because um, I'm able to easily connect with people that I need to connect with to move a project forward or to learn something new that I don't know that will help us evolve a program. So I think of it as a strength. And I think, yeah, a little bit of me is slightly competitive, for sure. I do sense when I'm being underestimated. I think a lot of women in general do, but I do get a special sort of uh, appeasement when I realize that I have like outsmarted somebody who underestimated me, I
Yeah.
guess.
No, I agree. And I think that you're smart to not change who you are. Novartis hired you for, yes, your skills, but for you. Like, what
Yeah.
differentiates Chelsea?
Yeah.
And we need to be able to just be ourselves, and how that evolves in terms of how people perceive us will
Right.
eventually evolve because your skills and what you know will all come out.
Right.
So I think that's perfect. I'm curious, has there been, I know you spoke a little bit about, first applying with Novartis and not getting it, but has there been a failure in your life, or a perceived failure, perhaps in your own, you saw it as a failure,
Mhm.
that it basically redirected you in a more positive way? And I know you touched on how you wanted to change your trajectory in terms of working rather than just in tech, and that's what led you to Novartis. But was there anything else that maybe redirected you, even in your personal life? It doesn't necessarily even have to be in your career.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I mentioned, I was in tech for a number of years and I always had this interest in and curiosity about Silicon Valley when, it was in its earlier days and startups and entrepreneurialism in general. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My grandfather, like I mentioned, he started his cheese factory after moving to the US from
Love that.
and we're just small business owners, a lot of like hard work ethic. And I really relate to the entrepreneurial spirit of startups in Silicon Valley. And so I tried it out. I worked for a startup for a couple of years after having been at a larger organization. And I was able to do a lot of interesting, cutting edge marketing there. But also, what I didn't anticipate was at a startup, you have to take on tons of different kinds of roles. And
Mhm.
so, whether I liked it or not, I was now in, for example, a sales role. After being a marketer, they were just like, let's try this out. And I was sort of like super shocked and appalled that they would even consider putting me in a sales role. However, I tried it. My colleagues and I like worked really hard to learn sales and the sales process. I think it lasted around 6 months to a year, which is a typical startup experimental time. And we were able to get some really interesting wins from that process. I think overall, like, they recognize putting longtime marketers in a sales role without sales experience was a bit of a challenge, but like I ultimately ended up taking that experience back to a marketing organization and working in B2B marketing from there on out, where I was just a lot more informed about how sales actually has to live their lives and what kinds of content and digital and social tools they need to get their jobs done. And so I think while it was sort of an experience that I didn't necessarily feel I like had a slam dunk
Mhm.
um, doing, it really, really helped me become a better marketer and a better employee because I was kind of forced to see like a bigger picture, whether I liked it or not. And I think that's the kind of like lesson that you can take away from experiences like that. So I feel grateful for that sales fail, if you will, because I learned a ton and I came in number two, which I was so
Ah,
proud of considering
congrats.
my esteemed colleague was staying up all night long to become number one. I was like, I'm not doing that. So it was fun. It was interesting. I learned a lot from it.
That's great. I love that. And I love, because your career path has really not been traditional. Just
Yeah.
hearing what you're saying, where you've been, the
Yeah.
different positions you've had. But what about that person today wanting she's just starting out and she
Mhm,
wants to be you.
mhm.
What is the biggest advice or the best advice you can give her?
I would say, I think about this quite a bit now, um, especially with my birthday only a month behind me. I think,
Happy birthday, belated.
thank you. I think being tenacious and just, you know, picking yourself back up and trying again the next day over and over and over again, I can't undersell how important that actually is. And then the other thing is, you know, work ethic has changed a lot. And over the centuries, over the decades, you hear generational comments about millennials or Gen Z or boomers, whatever. But I think one thing that has always stuck out to me is that there's a great underestimation of just hard work
Mhm.
and its value and its importance. And so, like, it sounds really simple and a little Pollyanna, but like, make sure that you're always like paying attention to your work ethic and working really, really hard, obviously taking care of yourself along the way and taking the breaks you need. But like, that actually pays off over time. I mean, in some environments, the hardest working person is certainly not always the most rewarded, but overall, over the course of your career, you will definitely see a lot more opportunity by being the person that's willing to like put in the hard work. Because the more you're working hard on a project or taking on something new, you're learning, you're networking, you're growing your career. So I would say, don't underestimate being willing to just do some hard work along the way and keep at it with tenacity.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think even with listening to your story, there's more to that in the sense that, yes, the hard work and putting the time in, but you also took the time to continue learning, to
Mhm.
continue figuring out, okay, how do I get to that next step? And maybe there
Yeah,
was a misstep when in the sales, but you took from that and then moved forward with it. So
yeah,
it's not just keep working, like keep working and you're the workhorse and why aren't I getting anywhere? It's
yeah.
keep working, but also keep working on yourself. And it from what you've been saying, that's exactly what you were doing to get to this point.
Exactly. I can't underestimate also how important it is to stay curious. I mean, it sort of sounds like a cliche, but it's true. I'm a very curious person and similar to a very friendly person. I think sometimes that can also be perceived as, well, if you're willing to ask questions, maybe you don't know. So maybe you're not as smart. I disagree with that tremendously. I personally love to ask questions, learn um, about everything. If you have that kind of mindset, don't undersell how important it is. I mean, I love to learn about all kinds of things outside of work. I love music. I love art. I love nature. So whatever that is for you, young person starting out, um, there's always something to learn, and it will eventually apply to your work life. So keep at it.
Yep. And keep asking questions. Don't feel dumb.
Yeah,
There's never a
exactly.
dumb question, as they say, right?
I agree with that.
Perfect. Well, okay. So with Novartis, I know you recently had a Super Bowl, an ad in the Super Bowl,
Yes.
and it definitely was being called provocative. It was getting a lot of attention. I mean, I know they say any attention is good, but it's not necessarily the kind of attention that you expected, I think. And but that's it's just so valuable to what you're this was raising awareness on
Mhm.
breast awareness or breast cancer awareness and how to be more preventable. But just women's health in general tends to get the back burner when it comes to advertising. And for those reasons, it's considered provocative or boring or what are they doing talking about that during a football game or whatever may be said.
Right.
How important, though, is it to get past that and to put women's healthcare in front and center?
I think it's extremely important. Obviously, our leadership, who is behind that effort. I mean, I support women's cancer, so I work with the team that worked on that work, and didn't work on it directly myself. But I was in awe of what they were able to achieve in this industry because this industry is not known for being provocative. But that's also the opportunity. You see, like, if you're willing to just talk about the elephant in the room, you can really change behaviors and conversations. And so I think it's super important. So much of what women experience day to day is considered taboo. I have personal stories that from my own experience that were considered taboo. And when they happened to me, I was like, wait, why aren't we talking about that more? Right? We should be.
Right.
And this is a perfect example of kind of breaking through that glass ceiling of things we shouldn't talk about that actually we should. So I was super proud to be affiliated with an organization that was willing to take that risk, and the leaders that drove that work forward really changed things for all of us. In the entire industry, we had competitors giving us kudos. That's a huge deal because we all knew that we were all marching toward making this normalizing a conversation around women's health that needed was overdue is overdue. So
Right. Well,
yeah.
so do you think, being called provocative, yes, that is certainly something that marketers like to hear about their campaigns. But it also, as I said, some of the newscasters or just people in general, why are we seeing ads like this? But even with that, it's better to do it then. So that's what you believe in the sense of take the risk, maybe take the hits,
Mhm.
but in order to move a subject or anything forward, you need to continue doing that.
Yeah, I think yeah, especially in the times we live in, like if we are all inundated with information from social to email to TV, and there's a lot of geopolitical changes every day in the world, not even just the US. And so to break through and start a conversation that is valuable, I do think sometimes you need to turn a few heads. And I think, the fact that our leadership stood behind that is amazing. And that is definitely not traditionally how pharma operates. So I think, yeah, I think it's been great for our organization, and the conversation is continuing, and everybody's super excited about it, and I think it's definitely been worth it. I mean, I'm super proud as a marketer at Novartis to even be remotely affiliated with it, even though it was not my actual work. um, it's just awesome. Like, I
Yeah.
think that's the kind of conversation that we need to spark. And not everyone's always going to be happy about it, but I think it's changing behavior, and that's really the most important thing. So I
Well,
love
and
it.
that's how you make changes. Not every the reason things need to change is because people want one thing and maybe we want another thing. And
Yeah,
so you're not going to please everyone. But in order to
absolutely.
continue moving forward or to redirect it in a more positive way, or in this sense, to bringing women's health care in the front and center.
Exactly. And I
Proper.
would share two experiences or three that made me realize as a person, not even just Novartis marketer, that this was really working. I had friends texting me during that Super Bowl ad, being like, "Did you work on this? This is amazing. Did you see this?" Organically on their own.
Wow.
I also was at a conference in the spring and sitting behind, two older women that were like friends or colleagues. And one of our associates was on the stage giving a talk. So we were all supporting her. And the women like leaned in together. And one of them said to the other, "Did you see that ad? It was amazing. It was awesome." Like, they were just organically kind of like talking about it. And I think that groundswell of conversation happening without you is exactly the kind of thing that all marketers love, but also like changes behavior in a way that I'm super proud to be affiliated with. So I think it's great.
It's all about starting the conversation. And that's any success story for any marketer. I
Yes.
totally agree. I want to turn it a little to lighten the load. What's your guilty pleasure?
My guilty pleasure. Oh man. Well, lately it's chocolate, though I've been on this health journey for about a year trying to get myself back on track. I was a long time runner. And I, moved. I had a sick parent, I had a child, all the things we all have on top of work. And I just kind of fell off my health journey. So I got back on it a year ago, but I really love chocolate. I can't completely quit chocolate. And then
I'm with you.
yeah. My other guilty pleasure is running. And I know that sounds like sort of a cheat or a cop out, but it truly is. And I wasn't able to do it as much as I used to before I had a child. And I've been getting back into it. And so it's just like really life affirming to be able to do that again.
That's great. So, what could long distance, sprinting, what kind of running do you like?
Yeah, I just finished a half marathon last weekend, but it was my
Wow.
first in 7 years, and so I love distance running. I love the process of running. I'm not a sprinter. I don't run fast. I'm actually going to start with my running buddy. We're going to start training on sprints because um, that's something I've never really done. And continuous learning and pushing yourself, that's something I want to start doing, and it takes less time, candidly. So I'll be able to I'll keep up with running and get better at running, but I'm not always going to be, running for 3 hours and a half marathon. So
Yeah. Well, even they even say actually that kind of circuit training
yes,
or the going from, maybe slower to
yes,
a faster speed and just changing it up, doing hills,
yes,
that will get your metabolism and get you working your heart much better than
exactly.
just that continued long run.
You're nailing it, Lisa. So now
Yes.
that I've had my birthday, I will not mention. I'm trying to run faster and work hills in and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. No, I love to put the hills in too. That's to
Yes.
me. I had hurt my leg a little bit. I had this nerve thing on my upper thigh, and so I don't run anymore. Like this was a while back. It was just a random thing with my, and I had to go through physical therapy. And I know if I run any long distance, it starts to act up. So I tried to stay away from that. So I then got into more the hills and
Nice.
going like, especially if you're, I mean, I like to do it when I was in Newport Beach. I had it outside and could do the hills.
Mm.
Sometimes not so much. So then I'm using the treadmill, but I keep continually changing it up and that kind of thing. And I
The
feel
hills
like
are
it's a,
hard.
yeah, it's a better workout. And it also kind of makes me not as bored because
Exactly.
you're changing things up.
You really can't do anything but concentrate when you're running up a hill.
Yeah.
I agree. There's a route I do by my house, and it's like very, very hilly, and it's
Mhm.
short, but it's super hilly. And by the end, I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah. You're
I'm
dying. Well, that's like in,
glad that's over.
have you been to Deer Valley
No,
yet? Okay. That's so the altitude change, when you're doing any type of like walking up 5 stairs, you feel like you've won a marathon. So, but I feel that way even when working out in any hill. It just
nice.
what you think you can run in general, once you throw a hill in, it's more of like, oh my
Ah, it's
God.
humbling.
Yes, it's completely humbling. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to put you back in time.
Mhm.
So we have a time machine and it's going to bring you back to pre-teen Chelsea. What advice would you give her?
Boy, that's a good one. I would tell her to stop doubting herself and that she's super smart and capable, um, and to just go out there and get it and not question it. I think generally my experience with preteen girls, I have a niece right now that is one of them, is that they can be super insecure. I was raised in a place where, most people stayed where they grew up and didn't venture out. And I wish I look at my niece. She's such an inspiration. She has been since she was 2. She's 12, and she's being raised in California. My brother is an amazing dad. My sister-in-law is an amazing mom. But she's just so confident, and I love that. And I think if I could go back in time, I would encourage myself to embrace that earlier.
Because you did venture out, but do you feel like you were slower to do that because maybe you thought, okay, you got to keep things the way they are?
No, I ventured out pretty early. I remember one of our first family vacations to Florida that I was like a preteen actually. I was like, why are we not like living in the sunshine by the ocean? And so I kind of got hooked on that right away. But I ventured out. I was confident to get away from, where I grew up.
Yeah.
But I just think there were other things like looking back, I'm like, huh, if you had just been a little more, you
Yeah.
know, good spot. But now I love to see my niece. Like it's amazing. She's an inspiration. She's coaching tennis at 12. I mean, kids these days.
Well, I think also you're to thank for that, and all women, like, in the sense that your role models weren't necessarily doing the things that now that you're doing.
Exactly.
Whereas now, teens today or
Yeah,
preteens can see women like yourself in leadership positions or star athletes or whatever it may be. So it makes them feel like, okay, these are things I can try to do.
absolutely. I mean, my niece is surrounded by amazing people, and I'm lucky to be one of them. And I'm lucky to be one of her favorites. So I hope that I continue to inspire her, and she definitely continues to inspire me too.
Well, I think you will continue to inspire her, and I'm glad that that you have that inspiration as well. All right, so my final question is again about Novartis's mission, and
Mhm.
another part of Novartis's mission is bettering lives. So just turning it to you personally, how do you better your life or others around you personally each day? Just little things that you might do.
Good question. I think of what I do day to day. Like, I support our neurology and women's cancer spaces. I think of what I do at work. I do very much feel that, like, values driven mindset. I'm not working directly with patients, but I'm influencing things that will help them, you know, as they're considering treatments and in their path. So I think that's sort of the easy and very true one for me. Um, and then, in terms of other people's lives, I have always been very close to my friends and my family. I'm very lucky. I think the older I get, the luckier I feel to have friendships that are 20 years old. Many, like, for a person of my age, 5 or 6 really good friends that I've been friends with for, a couple of decades now. And so I just think of my friends, my core set of friends,
Mhm.
as family to me. And I try very hard to be very supportive to them, to stay connected to them. We all live all over the country and the world now. It's very important to me, to stay connected and supportive of one another. So I just think, day to day, we communicate a lot when we can. We make plans to see each other when we're able to. We're all busy with kids and marriages at this point, but I think it's just very important to me personally, to stay connected to those
Yeah.
6 good friends I have.
Yeah, well, and that says a lot that you have been able to do that. And I even find, like, 'cause I have friendships who since high school that
Yeah,
I still am friends with. I don't always see them. Well, I don't even always talk to them. But
right.
then when we do see each other, it's there again. And
Yes.
I think that's because you know, if something were going on, you're going to be there for them. And I know that they would be there for me. And I feel like that's a relationship so worth putting that effort into.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. I have a good friend from high school that, our lives have taken all kinds of different directions where we couldn't really be more different. And we go through phases of being really connected and close, and phases of not being able to make time for each other. And we still get back together, and it's like nothing ever changed. So that's gold to me now.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Well, Chelsea, thank you so much. This was such a pleasure talking with you and hearing about this side of you, more so than just the marketer Chelsea.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm glad this could happen, and I appreciate your time.
Me too. And thank you for watching. And as I always say, if you have a woman marketer who you want me to sort of pull back the curtain on, please let me know and I will do my best to get her. Okay, thanks for watching. And again, thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you.